Hi, and welcome to DY3 Solutions presentation, Up Your Listening Skills. The feedback we get from our clients is something to be proud of, and it's positive, and we like to try and get underneath what's made people feel that the coaching exercise or mentoring development exercise has been useful to them. And a number of our clients have said it created some space for them to talk and to think, and then they've added almost as a sort of a second thought, oh yeah, and I was listened to. And that made me think, I wonder how many of us go through our lives knowing that we're actually not being listened to, and how devaluing that experience can be. What I do know and understand is that when we are engaged with people and we're listening to them, it provides an opportunity for them to develop their thoughts, their ideas, to feel better about themselves, and also get to places from where they can say, do you know what, I think I can see the light here a little bit. I've explored some of my ideas and some of my feelings about this, and we can now begin to move forward. From a coach's perspective, that's a fantastic place to be. And what we're going to do now is take a look at some of the things that you might want to consider to incorporate into your practice when you're asked to be sat in a room and basically listen to what someone's saying. This will work well for coaches, mentors, supervisors, people who are doing one-to-one supervision, IPR, development sessions. The skills here are generic, and please, have a go at them, try them, and see how they work for you. Thank you. I'm going to bet that we've all had this happen to us when we're sat in a room with someone, we're talking to them, and we take a look at them, and we know, you know what, you haven't heard a word I've said for the last 30 seconds, 45 seconds, minute, have you? And what we then do, of course, is to ask them the real bear trap question. So what do you think about what I've just said? I would beg you, don't be that person who gets that question asked of them. Because what you're doing is cosmetic listening. You're looking as if you're listening, and you're not. To be serious, it takes a lot for some folks to come into a room and enter a dialogue that they're revealing something about themselves. They may be talking about stuff that's been on their mind for a long time that they've not felt particularly confident about, and they're at a point now where they feel, look, I can get this off my chest. I can open up and talk about it. And we need to reciprocate that, and we're not going to do that unless we're not only physically in the room with them, but we're also mentally, emotionally, psychologically present in the room with them at that time. Cosmetic listening, huge turn off for you, huge turn off for anyone who's at the receiving end of it. So let me stress and repeat again, don't be that person who is cosmetic listening. Right, so we're done with cosmetic listening. We're never going to do that again. We're actually going to get into, at the very least, conversational listening. And this is what most of us do most of the time, I guess, unless we're listening cosmetically. When we're engaged in a conversation and we're listening, and as we're listening, we're thinking and we're talking, and here we go. It's where minds meet. It's where stuff starts to happen, and it's good fun. It's setting up a conversation. I'm here, you're here. Yeah, let's just see how this rolls. And we often do this as just part of the introductory chit chat before we get going into the more serious stuff. So whereas it works at a maybe a quite easily accessible level, it would be wrong to think of it as superficial. It's not. It's about introducing yourself to people, or reintroducing yourself to them, and saying, look, I'm here with you. Let's just open up a little bit. Let's warm each other up a little bit before we start to go a little deeper into conversation, and also a little deeper into the prerequisite listening that's going to involve. So there we go, conversational listening. It's what most of us do most of the time in most conversations. Here we are then, we're looking at active listening, and this is where we're building up the conversational part of our work with our client, so that they're aware that we are focused on what they're saying. And you can see by the diagram at the bottom right hand corner of the slide or the page that active listening, there are 3 points that surround it. Now, I think that you can come in with any one of these points. We might just be sort of evaluating what somebody's said, thinking, okay, what's actually meaning there? And we start to organise it a little bit, and once we've organised what we've heard, we come back to them and we say, right, well, what I'm hearing here is, can you maybe tell me a bit more about that? Can you clarify that for me? What are we doing? We're saying to them, look, I'm here, I'm listening to you, I'm taking it seriously, and I'm wanting you to give me the very best information you can, and I want you to feel that you've done that. And then we move on to what we're sensing from it. So as we're listening, that's exactly what we're doing. We're not evaluating what we're hearing, we're listening to it, we're taking it all in. To make that work, we're not interrupting the clients unless we're actually trying to get a little bit more from them. We're also maintaining interest, and we can show that in a number of ways using non-verbal behaviour, paraverbals, and our whole body language, facial expressions and gesture. We'll talk about some of this as we move through the presentations, a really important area to be thinking about. Okay, we're moving on now to deep listening, and there's a quote here on the bottom right-hand corner of the slide or the page from Stephen R. Covey. Stephen Covey's work includes the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and the Third Alternative. Stephen Covey's work in the Third Alternative is about generating solutions that are successful, are sticky, they're long-lasting, and bring about real change. Reading the quote, we've all of us been there, haven't we? Where we're actually thinking about what we're going to say next, rather than listening to what's being said. When we're moving into deep listening, this clearly needs to change, so that the entire focus is on the speaker rather than on how we're going to respond. There's a word for it called strategizing. I'm building my strategy as you're talking, and even though we're very gifted at multitasking, this is a difficult multitask to do. What we need to be doing is giving our fullest concentration to what's being said, so that we are then quite naturally and quite in flow coming up with what to say next, not based on what we think should be said next, but a response to what we've heard, reaching into the very essence of the person's feelings, their views, their emotions, their hopes, their aspirations, and sometimes certainly their fears. Again, and like active listening, it takes a bit of practice, and there's going to be parts, and there's going to be times when we get a bit distracted and think, oh God, I've lost it here. You won't have lost it here. Every time you try it, and every time you experience a little bit more success, you're actually building up your own skill level. So please stick with it. It's a massively empowering tool for both you as a listener, as a coach, as a mentor, as a team leader, and also for the person who's in the room with you, in that conversation with you. They will know that they are being listened to 100% with great levels of presence and great levels of authenticity, and that is a powerful and empowering experience, and good luck with it. Right, so this next section takes us through some quite practical things that you can do to up your listening skills, and as you can see from the first 2 points on this page, it's really about tuning in. And then the third point is maybe a little bit more difficult, and it's about how we stop ourselves attaching our past experiences to similar things that have been said, incidents or events or people it reminds us of, and attaching a label to that. It gets in the way of good listening. We start then, if you like, developing a bit of a false narrative about what this person might be about. That's not the case. We need to listen to what they're saying and develop a true narrative. I'm certain you can see where this is going now, that we're looking at saying, okay, whatever I know about this person, whatever I believe about this person, I just need to suspend that now. I just need to leave it at the door, and this is going to help me to have a much clearer picture of what's being said, and get a clear view of where the person is at in this particular conversation. We're going to let them develop their train of thought, develop their ideas, and expand. And what we're going to do while they're doing that is listen to them. Because if we're interrupting, we have to ask ourselves, am I now imposing some of my values, some of my solutions onto this, when I haven't yet actually heard what it is you have to say. I'm pretty sure that you'll understand that there's a few things we can do to create a sense of rapport with people. We can, if you like, mirror or partly match their body position. We can follow their nods and their maybe some of their minor gestures and so on. But there is this question about how much eye-to-eye contact is too much, and I think it's surprisingly little. The fact is, with eye-to-eye contact, if we dwell on the eyes too long, it is pretty uncomfortable for the person who's giving it or for the person who's receiving it. There are some pretty straightforward reasons for this. When we give eye contact, it's about encouraging people to either like us or fight with us. I'm not quite sure what your coaching or mentoring sessions are like or what your supervision sessions are like, but I'm going to suggest now that neither of those are where we need to be. It's great, though, to attend to people's non-verbal behaviour, maybe to look at where they're averting the gaze when they are actually sort of looking inwardsly and finding it difficult to talk. And shifts in body language can sometimes give us an opportunity to say some quite quite neutral stuff. You know, are you okay to carry on? Shall we maybe take a break? Shall I get us some water? Shall I suggest that we just have 10 minutes comfort break and then meet again? It's really, again, an extension of staying aware and staying tuned into what's going on in the room. I'm going to tell you something now about external distractions. They will only occur when you're actually at a critical point in your conversational dialogue with somebody. At that point where you're thinking, we really are making some progress here, and your mobile phone goes off or somebody knocks the door and says, can I just have a minute? So that's pretty easy to control. Switch the phone off and have some way of signalling that we're not to be interrupted right now. We've talked about how important it is for the coach, the mentor, team leader, supervisor to develop space and let the client do the talking. One of the ways we can do this is to keep our labels in our pockets. From childhood, we have labels stuck on our surface, on our personality, where people tell us what we're like, who we're like, what our aspirations are, who we can expect to be. And one of the big challenges I have with labels is that they're sticky and they leave a mark. So the example we're using here is a conversational shortcut. So it could be, for example, talking about a person or a specific role or a group of people, and the coach, the mentor, the supervisor, their response is, what can you expect from so-and-so? That's not really helping us to get to the root of the challenge, or to start to come up with some idea of how we can get around this, what we might have to do to change or ease or otherwise adjust that relationship. So if we can avoid that all too convenient labelling, that's a great thing to do. I try to remind myself and other coaches that our sessions aren't about us. It's not about a place for us to preach and for our client to listen. It's actually about establishing a dialogue. And really that kind of 80-20 rule is about right, that we're doing 80% of the listening and 20% of the talking, and our client's doing 80% of the talking and 20% of the listening. That kind of ratio is really where we need to be. It's not about us. So let's start with the last point first. Have you ever been in a conversation, in a meeting with somebody, and at the end of it they say, can I just add one more thing? And that one more thing is the one more thing that you really needed to be talking about for the previous 50 minutes. I guess the point here is that we don't dismiss because we think we're finished. Sometimes it's at the end of the meeting where people feel most relaxed and they can add something in. The whole idea about and another thing is that it takes us to a very important point, one that we've emphasised and will continue to re-emphasise. It's about the client, it's not about you. So it's about their concerns and worries and how it's impacting on their lives, on their happiness, on their view of the world and their ability to move on and to progress. We are in danger on occasions of coming up with a diagnosis, having maybe heard only part of the information we need to. So again, this highlights why other concerns and worries are just that. So just think of the GP surgery. How many of us are finally just almost on the way out giving our GP exactly the piece of information they need to say, oh, well, let's just take another look at that. So the idea here is that we're not jumping to conclusions about what might be going on, about how we can fix it. That's far and away from where we need to be, which is about, right, what do we know now that we didn't know before, and what does it tell us about what we need to do next? The old cliches, yeah. The good thing about cliches, I suppose, is that they do have an element of truth about them. One of the problems with them, of course, is that they are what I would call close-down phrases. They're almost, okay, hey, what can you do about that? The state of the world today kind of stuff. So we're almost saying, yeah, it's pretty hopeless, isn't it? And nobody's going to be able to put that right. And if you think of some of the negative beliefs that we could be giving affirmation to there, it's not really where we need to be. I think we can all accept by now that the coaching, the mentoring relationship, the listening relationship is about creating time and space and opportunity for your client to talk about ideas, concerns, hopes, ambitions, their interpretation of the world as they see it, and as they're talking, to gain insights to their own feelings about the subject of their conversation. And we as coaches, as mentors, it's our job to lead them through that, and maybe to get them to a point where they can decide, this is the way I'm going to go with this, slightly quicker than they would have if we weren't there. Now, there are occasions when we are going to hear our clients say things, and we're almost questioning, well, why is that even a problem? The fact is, to the person who's given us the information, it is a problem. And for us to cut it off and to say, well, that's not important, if we think it through, there's a really good chance that the person's not going to hear, that's not important. What the person is going to hear is, you're not important. And that's really going to do some damage to the coaching relationship, and may make them think, you know what, I'm never going to mention that or anything like it again. Similarly, we can only give people assurance about what is in our gift to give and take away from them. So much as it might feel good to try to reassure them by promising or suggesting that their worries might not come true, we're not actually in a position to make that judgment, and it would be far better if we were to maybe sort of turn the question back with, how realistic do you think that is, and tell me about what leads you to feel that way or to think that way. Again, encouraging the contribution to the conversation to come from the client. A lot of people ask me what paraverbals are, and here we go. They're those kind of noises that we make that go like, yep, right, yeah, okay, go on. Look, they're not sentences. A lot of them aren't even proper words, but what they are, they're a kind of positive cue to carry on developing the point you're making. That's all they are. They are, however, very, very powerful. There's a downside to paraverbals, and I wonder if you've heard it when somebody's, you're trying to explain something to somebody, and they go, and what they're really saying to you is, hurry up and finish, will you? So what we want to make sure is that our paraverbals are encouraging and developmental, and they're not actually slamming the door in somebody's face. Okay, so here we go. Let's go out and give it a go. And you can try it with all sorts of people, really. You should try it with your clients. You can try it with members of your family and friends. Just think about, how can I listen differently here? And how does it feel? That real important question. What am I noticing? What is different here? What is changing? What's better for me? What's better for the client? What's come out of this that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't have taken that approach? And like anything, it takes a little bit of practice. Let's remember that we go from a point of unconscious incompetence. We don't know how bad we are sometimes at stuff, to conscious incompetence. We know actually that we're not doing this awfully well. And then we go to a point called conscious competence. We're practicing, we're getting better, we know we're getting better, and then eventually we reach that point of unconscious competence, where we're that good at it, it becomes our second nature, and we actually would have to think quite hard to explain to people what it is that makes me actually pretty good at that. And you could think of any kind of major skill, whether it's a physical skill, an intellectual skill, a creative skill, that actually sort of unpacking it when it's your second nature is really quite tough. The interesting place to be is when you move yourself from that conscious incompetence to conscious competence and really noticing the difference it makes. So good luck, and if you'd like to know more about us, then our contact details are going to follow soon. Thank you. So first things first, on the departure page, we hope you've enjoyed it, and that there's something here that you might think about. Oh, I'm actually going to give that a go and see how it works out. We we do quite a lot of work around the areas of emotional intelligence, positive psychology, appreciative inquiry. Our approach is a very developmental one, and it's about using soft skills in quite hard places. So here are our contact details, and please feel free to get in touch with us. Even if it is that you just fancy a bit of a chat, that's fine. That's the way the world works, and it works very well for us in that way. So thank you very much indeed for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.